public gallery today who's here with me on work experience. So he's going to enjoy the infrastructure committee today. And welcome everybody to the meeting. Obviously, just remind members about your mobile devices and your computers that they are on mute, because we have had a few sound issues in the past few weeks. So just watch for interference with the mics. Okay, so I'll provide a brief overview of today's business. The committee will consider a written briefing on the Motor Vehicles Compulsory Insurance Act, Northern Ireland 2022, which is post-legislative scrutiny. We're going to consider 2 statutory rules subject to assembly procedure, consider 1 statutory rule and 3 proposals for statutory rules not subject to assembly procedure, and consider the forthcoming priorities and scheduling in the Forward Work Programme. So for those who are in attendance today in the public gallery, just a reminder that mobile devices can be used through a Wi-Fi connection, and all devices are to be muted, and there's to be no recordings or photographs to be taken of the meeting. So I'm just going to proceed through the agenda as follows. Apologies. I don't have any apologies, but we do have Mark, Nicola and John joining us online today. Item 2 is declarations of interest. I remind members that they are obliged to declare any relevant financial or other interests which might reasonably be thought by others to influence their approach to the matter under consideration. Any members who have interest to declare in relation to today's business should do so now or when the particular matter arises in the meeting. So does any member have any interest that they wish to declare? I just want to declare we will be discussing about the A5, so as per usual I'm just discussing that, or just declaring that my husband's family are landowners along the route. Any other declarations of interest? No? Okay. Item 3 is chairperson's business. So at its just want to let members know that at its meeting on the 6th of March 2025, obviously last week, the Committee for Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs agreed to scope out the possibility of a formal or informal concurrent meeting with the Committee for Infrastructure on the impact of the vesting of land and the impact that that's having on farmers in relation to the A5, particularly around planning for replacement farm buildings and ammonia issues, as previously discussed when we had our joint committee meeting before, and obviously this will take account of the ongoing litigation as well, just that we have to be mindful of that. Also useful given the fact that the Minister yesterday did announce at the North-South Ministerial Council there's to be a steering group set up, and in relation to the other plan issues, and as you know, I did ask a question in relation to that, so it might be good to try and scope out more about what that will actually mean in practice. So I just want to seek agreement that our own clerks work with the clerk of the ERA committee to scope out the possibility of a formal or informal meeting at an appropriate time to include consideration of appropriate evidence, such as that from DERA officials on the ammonia issue and from planning officials on options to address to the issues raised at the ERA committee. So are you content with that?
Sure.
Does anybody want to add anything to that? Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on. Item 4 is the draft minutes. At page 7, you'll see draft minutes of the proceedings of the meeting on the 5th of March 2025. Just members, there was a small typo on page 8 of that you'll see in your packs. It said 2026. It should be 2025. So are members content that with that change, the minutes are a true and accurate reflection of the meeting on the 5th of March 2025?
Right.
Okay, sign the minutes now, thank you. Perfect, thank you. Item 5 is matters arising. So do any members have any matters arising from the previous meeting? Mark? Oh, I thought Mark was gonna... No, you're all right. Okay. Item 6 is correspondence. At page 18, you'll see the correspondence memo. At page 23, you'll see the ministerial response to the committee correspondence regarding business plans and performance. So I just want to, at this stage, say that this correspondence will be dealt with on the last item of the Forward Work Programme, which will be the consideration of forthcoming priorities, because I think it sits better when we're coming to discuss our Forward Work Programme, if that's okay. At page 27 is a ministerial response to the committee correspondence regarding the traffic congestion in Belfast. So I just want to seek agreement that we write to DFI indicating the committee would be content to receive the monthly summary technical monitoring report, just to keep a check on that. You agreed?
Agreed.
Page 29 is a ministerial response to the committee correspondence regarding the Gully pilot scheme. I was very happy to see Fermanagh and Omagh included there. I'm just seeking agreement that we write to DFI requesting an update about the conclusion of the pilot scheme.
Sure. What's the bones of that pilot scheme? What is the? I'm not over the detail of that.
So this was, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this was to do with money that have been allocated for Gullion and to do with the flood issue. And
is it to manage Gully cleaning better?
It was from memory, and it was about a software solution that was being trialled, so that's, I think that's been successful, and therefore they're just piloting that in the initial phases, and I think it's also to provide live real-time information. That would be something that has been of interest to members.
We'll obviously get a bit of a feedback on that, obviously. After that. Fair enough.
So that's what I'm sort of seeking agreement that we write to DFI, obviously getting an update on the conclusion and I suppose the learning that has come out of that and how that will then roll out, or will it roll out? What will be the budget regarding that to roll out to other areas? You can tempt with that,
I mean, you wouldn't want to forward something that maybe wasn't good, but certainly gully issues, certainly in Newcastle with surface flooding that we've had, something like this that has a clear maintenance schedule and can keep on top of, one would hope that it would be helped that.
Yeah.
So maybe you could kind of hear what the feedback is and go forward from there.
I'm keen just in relation to the technology. Because if that's, there could be maybe a cost saving part of that as well, for using technology, and we see the results in real time. It can also help in terms of the flood management piece as well. So I think it's just be good to try and get more detail on it. Sorry, Mark.
Sorry, no, I was going to just ask about that more detail, and I think it's what Keith was asking. What exactly is the pilot? And I know it's about a software or technological solution. I've been pushing this for a couple of years to actually use technology around gullies, but my push was on something as simple as there's no record kept of what gullies are cleaned and when, so they're all down for an annual collection or cleaning now. Sadly, it's once a year. But if they come along and there's a car parked over that gully, that's not really recorded anywhere. So you've gullies that might not be cleaned for 5 or 6 years or more, and I thought that was it. But there might be something more to this, but I'd love to just know exactly what the pilot is.
Well, when we're going back to DFI, Mark, we can check to see whether as part of that pilot they're also recording the data and how they hold that information as well. We can check that as part of it.
Yeah, well, that was what was the technological solution. I saw something as simple as an app where they put in, we've this one done, we've missed this one, and that was collated, so they know, particularly in areas prone to flooding, that they needed to pay particular attention there.
Yeah, and I think in the correspondence it does say about the new mobile software solution. So, as you say, it'd be good to just get some information in terms of how that data is collated and kept. And you're right, Mark, in terms of what you say, a lot of us have had that frustration where we've been asked, residents have asked us to get gullies cleared, and if there's a car parked along it, and we all know then what happens as a result. So I think that's fair enough. Everyone content on that?
So we're delighted for Mona's getting something.
I know.
On your behalf,
I know.
absolutely. I thought Mark was going to ask about Derry there for a minute, but we're delighted for Fermanagh.
Well, hopefully that'll come in good time. Fermanagh's leading the way for
Absolutely.
once on this. Thank you. Okay, so item 30 is the ministerial response to the committee correspondence regarding medical fitness to drive. So I think as a committee we probably need to just get more detail in relation to this from a departmental point of view. So what I'm suggesting is that we write to the Minister requesting an update on the outcomes of the discussions that they have had once completed, and then obviously we can take that forward as a committee as well. So are you content with that?
Sure.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to make this whenever this was discussed previously. I think Kate had initially written in asking for a joint committee session between health and infrastructure.
Yeah.
Why did we decide to go down this route? Because I'm not really sure why the minister responded in this way to whatever we discussed that day. So what was discussed?
So what we discussed, I think that was last week we discussed this, or maybe the week before, and to be honest, before we have a joint committee meeting ourselves, we would need to be furnished with all the full facts, because what will happen is inevitably you will go into a committee meeting. We can talk around the houses around it as well, but there seems to be discussions. The Minister has come back to say that they are having discussions with Kate and her constituents in relation to this matter. So I was thinking that as a committee it might be worthwhile for us to hear the outcomes of those discussions, because it could be a scenario where once they have a sit-down meeting and have those discussions, there could be something further that comes out of that. If not, obviously then we can look down the route of whether a joint committee meeting on this issue would be the most appropriate after that. But we don't have all of the facts at this moment in time, so rather than to go, elongate or, have meetings for the sake of meetings at this moment in time, I thought it might be useful to wait until those discussions take place.
You'll be aware that I had written to the DVA as chair of the All-Party Group on Road Safety, and I've seen that response, and that's going to be up for discussion at the next All-Party Group. But just having seen that, I think the joint committee approach would be really helpful, because I know the pressure the health committee is under, obviously us as well. But totally on board with your approach there. That makes sense.
Well, look, it's up to the committee to make a decision on it. Do you want to go forward with waiting for the Minister to come back with further details in terms of discussion, or do you want to?
I would say, obviously the All-Party Group's meeting on the 1st of April, I think, although there's issues there now. But I think it'd be good to maybe get something programmed on it. I was just been texting a colleague there who's on health, and he said there's so much, it could be a while for this to even happen. I think if we even write to them and say, would you be agreeable to this, we could get the response from the Minister in the future and realise that it's not necessary, but maybe just get it in the program.
So I don't think we're saying no at this moment in time to a joint meeting. We're not ruling it out. So that's why, instead of letters going back and forth without the full facts and the details, we maybe just hold back for now to wait till we get more details, and then when we do have that, we can get it scheduled. Those meetings, it's a bit like the agriculture meeting, those meetings can be scheduled
on other days.
Okay. And I think that did happen with our last joint meeting. It was on a separate day it was on a sitting day. As opposed to a Wednesday or whatever, so because it will be on that specific issue itself. So, Cathal, were you?
Yeah, Chair. No, I'd agree with that. We need to fully understand ourselves where we're at and what's to be fair. And then we'll take it from there, and we can share that information. You know what I mean? Ourselves.
Yeah.
And then we can meet in the Senate chamber or whatever, even one member from each party, if people's not available on that day. So let's go. Let's use that approach. I would support your approach there. Okay.
Yeah, and I see the Minister's meeting on the 9th of April, so after the 9th we'll know what...
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
It's not that long away.
It's not that long away. Obviously, if it was further down the line, you know, it might be a different. But because those meetings are happening fairly soon, and those discussions, I think maybe it's just useful to wait at this stage.
Fair enough, yeah.
Content? Okay, thank you. Okay, item 31 is a ministerial response to the committee correspondence regarding the raised paper on planning applications and flood risk. So, members, you'll see there that the final paragraph at page 34 of the pack in the letter, it states that in absence of the full regulatory framework envisaged by the Reservoirs Act, Rivers Directorate's officials and planning authorities have developed guidance for the practical applications of strategic planning policy for the development in proximity to reservoirs. Obviously, as you know, we have the Reservoirs Act coming back to us at some stage, but I'm keen to try and find out what this actually means in terms of planning, because obviously that's going to inform ourselves with the Reservoirs Act coming up. So I'm seeking agreement that we write to the department seeking detail of any of the plans it has to review SP15 in light of the forthcoming regulations under the Reservoirs Act. Would you be content with that?
Yep.
Yep.
Anything else that members want to raise on that? And then, obviously then as well, as part of that, I just want to schedule an oral evidence session on the specific issues affecting development proposals, the department's as a short-term approaches to deal with development considerations and associated guidance, the limitation of these approaches and the barriers to remedying any issues as cited by the Minister in her letter. Are you content with that?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. At page 44, you'll see correspondence from the Committee for the Economy regarding the Dulux Group, Creative Arts on infrastructural issues, including planning delays and their adverse impact on expansion. If any of you were speaking to any of the members from the Economy Committee, I think they were really impressed by the Dulux Group in terms of the presentation that was given to the committee last week. So I think given the impact that planning and is having on the business, I think it might be useful for ourselves as well to schedule an oral evidence session from Dulux Group on the specific issues they referred to in relation to industrial development, including planning delays and infrastructural issues such as water and sewage. So are you content with that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And then at page 150, you'll see correspondence from the Community Transport Association requesting to provide oral evidence to the committee. We haven't had the Community Transport Association up. They are a really important and vital part of the community. And if you were at the event that they had a couple of weeks ago, which they launched a document that is included in the pack as well. So just seeking agreement to schedule in the forward work programme at an appropriate date. Are you content?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. At page 233, you'll see response from TransLink to the committee correspondence regarding the lack of public transport accessibility to medical appointments. So I'm obviously just seeking agreement that we forward to the member of the public for their own information. You content?
Agreed.
So does any members have any other items of correspondence that they want to raise an issue on that is contained within the correspondence in the meeting pack? No? Okay. So I'm just seeking agreement that members are content to note the remaining correspondence as contained in the correspondence memo in the meeting pack. Agreed?
Agreed.
Okay. Thank you. Page 7, item 7 is the Motor Vehicles Compulsory Insurance Act Northern Ireland 2022. This is our post-legislative scrutiny and it is written evidence. So at page 237, you'll see the Motor Vehicles Compulsory Insurance Act Northern Ireland 2022, written evidence. Just want to let members know that the purpose of the written evidence from the department is to establish whether the Motor Vehicles Compulsory Insurance Act Northern Ireland 2022 has delivered the originally intended outcomes. During the last mandate, the Committee for Infrastructure received oral evidence from the Department relating to the changes to the framework for the compulsory motor insurance as set out in the Road Traffic Northern Ireland Order 1981. Due to a European directive under case law, it meant that compulsory motor insurance should extend to any use of vehicles consistent with their normal function, even on private land. The effect of the VNUC judgment meant that the existing motor insurance statutory provision, both here and in Great Britain, was no longer compatible with the directive and retained EU case law, with the potential of compensation claims relating to incidences on private land. The Motor Insurers Bureau, which is MIB for short, has responsibility for settling claims involving uninsured and untraced drivers, and in the absence of legislative changes would be liable for claims relating to uninsured motor accidents occurring on private land. Given that the MIB is funded via a levy, all motor insurers are required to contribute to this funding, which in turn would have been reflected in the premiums payable by motorists. Work undertaken by the government's actuary department estimated that this would have been at an approximate additional cost of £50 per annum to motor premiums. Following the withdrawal from the EU, the resulting regulatory independence meant that it was now possible to legislate to remove the effects of the VNUC ruling. This required primary legislation to amend the motor insurance statutory provision in the 1981 order. The purpose of the Motor Vehicles Compulsory Insurance Act Northern Ireland 2022 was to restore the original interpretation and intention of our motor insurance law. As such, it did not lead to any change in policy. It ensured that mandatory motor insurance cover would remain confined to the use of motor vehicles on roads and other public places. It also ensured that the MIB would not be liable for any insurance claims in respect of incidences on private land and for vehicles not constructed for road use. It is the Department's assessment that the Act has achieved its purpose in ensuring that mandatory motor insurance. Obviously, the committee has expressed concern over rising costs of motor insurance. This legislation has helped to ensure that the additional costs would not be borne by motorists arising from the VNUC judgment. I'm asking members if there's any issues that you want to raise in relation to the evidence on the post-legislative scrutiny at this moment in time. No, all content. The only other thing I just wanted to maybe suggest is that we might just want to check up in relation to the UK Government Task Force on Motor Insurance and the work being undertaken by the Financial Conduct Authority in relation to that. I had met quite a while ago with the Financial Conduct Authority and those taking forward that task force on motor insurance, and I think it might be worthwhile to get an update to see where that's at this moment in time. I think the last meeting that was held with ministers here was November time off the top of my head, so it might be worthwhile to get checking in to see where that sits at this moment in time, because it still seems to be an issue for a number of people out there at this moment in time. So
I mean, just as a bit of background, Chair, the committee did write to the task force to sort of express that local circumstances should be taken into account, and in a subsequent response back, I think they'd indicated that they were going to be engaging with the Minister of Finance or the former Minister of Finance in terms of input in terms of that. So there is obviously scope to see what's happened since then. Yeah,
you content with that?
Yeah, Chair, it'd be interesting to see the conversations that's taking place.
Yeah.
Besides the response to them, I mean, I don't know where we can get access to that. I mean, if they have met as a task force, I mean,
Yeah.
It's actual conversations they're having as opposed, you know what I mean? So I don't
Yeah.
know where, but let's get a wee update and we'll take it from there
Yeah.
first.
We could write to the Department of Finance to see what the input was.
So we're just saying there, we'll write to the Department of Finance as well
Absolutely.
on that to see about the output
Yeah.
and also how it impacts in terms of here,
Absolutely.
in terms of Northern Ireland, because you know, anecdotally, and I suppose some figures would show that Northern Ireland does have some of the higher insurance premiums, especially for young drivers as well.
No, John, I agree. And my point obviously is, you know, it's grand sent up a task force, but you need to know the terms around, you know,
Yeah.
what exactly is going on, what way to set it. We know that insurance premiums here is far
Yeah.
higher, so no, listen, we'll get an answer back on it. Take it
Content?
from there, yeah.
Okay. Any other issues? Did anybody? No. Okay, so I'm just seeking agreement that we note the written evidence today that we've just had. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Item 8 is the SR 2025 Motor Vehicles Authorised Weight Amendment Regulations Northern Ireland 2025. So from pages 243 to 252, you'll see documents in relation to the statutory rule. At page 253, you'll see the Examiner of Statutory Rules 34th report. The rule is subject to negative resolution. So the main purpose of the regulations is to amend the Motor Vehicles Authorised Weight Restrictions Northern Ireland 1999 to provide for an increase in the maximum authorised weights in domestic traffic for certain alternatively fuelled vehicles and certain zero emission vehicles to support their uptake as part of the move to a net zero carbon emission target within the transport sector. The rule will come into operation on the 17th of March 2025. So I just want to inform members that the committee considered the proposal for the statutory rule at its meeting on the 26th of June 2024 and was content. The Examiner of Statutory Rules has reported on the rule and has no comment to make. So I'm just I want to also maybe seek agreement that we write to the department to request further information on the types of vehicles impacted by the rule and specifically ask them for the impact on vans, towing trailers and the impact on business vehicles as well, if you're content with that.
Content.
Yep.
Okay, so are members content with the statutory rule?
Read.
Okay, so the motion is that the Committee for Infrastructure has considered SR 2025-25, the Motor Vehicles Authorised Weight Amendment Regulations Northern Ireland 2025 and has no objection to the rule. Okay, thank you. Item 9 is SR 2025-31, the Merge Lane Lurgan Abandonment Order Northern Ireland 2025. From pages 263 to 269 are the documents in relation to the statutory rule. The rule is subject to negative resolution, so inform members that the purpose of the rule is to abandon an area of 323 square metres of superseded road at Merge Lane, Lurgan, commencing at a point 5.5 metres northeast of its junction with Connolly Place, extending for a distance of 43 metres in a northeasterly direction. On the coming into operation of the rule, the department will no longer be responsible for the maintenance of the area of road in question and the public right-of-way over it shall be extinguished. The rule will come into operation on the 31st of March 2025. So the committee considered the proposal for the statutory rule at its meeting on the 12th of February 2025 and was content. The Examiner of Statutory Rules has reported on the rule and has no comment to make. So are members content with the statutory rule? Content. Okay, so the motion is that the Committee for Infrastructure has considered SR 2025-31, the Merge Lane Lurgan Abandonment Order Northern Ireland 2025 and has no objection to the rule. Okay, thank you. Item 10 is subordinate legislation. SR is not subject to assembly procedure. Advise members that there is one statutory rule that is not subject to assembly proceedings and is not required to be laid. These are at pages 271 to 274 of the meeting pack and are the SR 2025-37, the prohibition of the right-hand turn, Carrickfergus Order, Northern Ireland 2025. I remind members that the committee noted that the proposal for the statutory rule at its meeting on the 26th of February 2025. So are members content to note the statutory rule? Content? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Item 11 is subordinate legislation. SL1's not subject to assembly procedures. Advise members that there are 3 proposals, SL1s, for statutory rules that are not subject to assembly proceedings and are not required to be laid. These can be found at pages 276 and 296, and they are the SL1, the Road Speed Limit Order, Northern Ireland 2025, the SL1, the Road Races Croft Hill Climb Order, Northern Ireland 2025, and the SL1, the Road Races Tour of the Sperrins Rally Order, Northern Ireland 2025. Has anybody any issues that they want to raise on the proposals? Content? Okay. So members are all content with the proposal for the statutory rule. Okay, thank you. Okay, item 12 is our forward work programme. At page 298, you'll see the Clerk's memo on the forward work programme, consideration of forthcoming priorities. At page 302, you'll see the draft forward work programme. So at this stage, I'm going to hand over to the Clerk just to outline the key issues regarding the forthcoming priorities of the committee.
Okay, I thought it would be helpful to use the time that we have available to look at what we're doing going forward. So just to summarise what we have next week in terms of oral evidence, we have DFI's response to the consultation on model licensing conditions 2024, so that's coming up next week. On the 26th of March, we then have the Interim Planning Commission coming up to talk about their work programme, and we also have an oral evidence session on the impact of regulatory requirements on wedding and funeral car providers. And on the 2nd of April, we have the Northern Ireland Audit Office confirmed to come up to talk about funding water infrastructure. And that's also the point at which we'll probably be considering the SL1s in relation to the Reservoirs Act as well. And then finally on the 9th of April, so this is all the evidence that we've scheduled and confirmed before Easter recess. On the 9th of April then we have the Department coming up to talk about better use of public sector funds for the delivery of bus transport in Northern Ireland. And specifically looking at the implementation of recommendations. And you'll see we also have some other evidence to be scheduled as well, and we've agreed further evidence sessions today. You'll also see from the forward work programme there's a number of consultations that are either have just closed or are about to close, so those will be coming at some point as well. So the review of trust ports consultation closed yesterday, the Living with Water programme for Derry, Londonderry. The plan there is the consultation is due to close on the 7th of April. Biennial MOT testing consultation is due to close on the 16th of April. And we also have the consultation on developer contributions, which we're expecting possibly to be launched this month as well. So there's quite a bit there. And then potentially another consultation to launch on the Rail Safety and Public Transport Bill. So that may be coming down the line at some point as well. In terms of the legislative work programme, we have the Water, Flooding and Sustainable Drainage Bill, which is due to be introduced. You'll note from the letter from the Minister, it states that that's due to be introduced before summer recess. And there's also a bill on ports that is planned to be to come at the latter part of 2025. And that's in addition to a number of potential members' bills. So just to really draw your attention to the ones that are relevant to this committee, Peter's Protection of Trees consultation closed on the 9th of March. Paula Bradshaw's Display of Flags and Emblems Bill, the consultation closes on that on the 31st of March. And also there's a number of other bills. I know the Chair's mentioned her bill, and there'll be potentially other bills that may not fall directly to this committee, but there may be some issues of relevance. So there's quite a bit there in terms of the legislative work programme. That's probably going to hit the biggest impact in the last 18 months of the mandate. So it's just really flagging up at this stage that that's what we can expect. And if all those do come to fruition, now we know they're not guaranteed at this stage, but if they do, that's going to be quite a meaty legislative programme at the end of the mandate. In terms of the implementation of the Reservoirs Act, the committee is soon to receive a number of SL1s as well. And members will recall that the committee had written to the department to seek detail on these SL1s that they'd previously received. So we are expecting more information on that. As we're probably aware, this is from an act that dates back now to 2015. And given the length of time that has passed and the fact that it has now fallen to the Infrastructure Committee, whereas previously it hadn't, just drawn to your attention that possibly it might be useful to have briefing from RIAs. So the agriculture researcher would have been the researcher who would have been involved in the 2015 Act. So I thought it might be helpful if members do agree to have a briefing from RIAs on the issues that came up at the time, because I think probably a lot of those are still relevant. Are members content with that?
Barbara, I have concerns over the Reservoirs Act piece, and I think we do need to take time to look at it properly. And my concern also comes from the fact that there was a transfer of functions in terms of the Reservoirs Act. It was previously under DAERA, and then it moved to obviously this department, and in the intervening period of time, you're talking 10 years have passed as well, so there will have been changes and different things that have happened in terms of the landscape, even in terms of flood map and all of that. So I don't think we can just take it as read that this piece of legislation was passed by the Assembly. I think we do need to look at it properly as a committee, and I think it might be worthwhile. That's why I would agree in terms of having the briefing session from, it's useful that there's some corporate knowledge there from somebody within RIAs in terms of how that bill actually progressed through the committee stages and in the Assembly as well. So I think it would be good to have them as soon as we possibly can to the committee as well, in advance of some of the legislation coming back to the committee. Yeah.
And then we'll have Susie as well, so Mark Allen and Susie as well, because she'll notify the plan side of things. So
yeah.
And Chair, we need to ask the question as well, because for some of us who's been around, I mean, we have only 2 years left this mandate, and it's not 2 full years. All the departments will be given first crack at legislation. There's a number of private members' bills, but I mean, we need to at some point ask the question as to where, especially all the committees are going to have to ask this question, but for this one, we need to be asking what's going to come, and I know you have a private members' bill, Chair, because the departments will definitely get first crack at the Assembly as we run closer to the time. We just need a clarification ourselves. We need to know what's coming and what's there, and if I was having the bill, I'd be asking the question, whatever committee it affects, because that's generally what's going to happen. But for the benefit of this committee, we need to know fairly sharpish what's coming, what's the time frames of what we can get through, because it's going to be all piled in now in 18 months. I'd say after we're in the Easter into the summertime, and you'll have a period and all of that. And my understanding, and maybe we'd seek clarification of the Speaker of the House, but it's generally the departments will be given preference. Maybe I'm wrong, but that it used to be that case. I'm not saying it is now.
Absolutely,
but,
I think
but
there's a
certain number of, because the time will run out, and the Speaker will have to make a decision as to what bills come forward and what doesn't, and what we can get done. So it's just as best for us as a committee to know, and any other members who are private members' bills would be, I would just advise them to have that conversation, because generally that's,
I think there's a couple of things there. So members' bills from the Members' Bills Development Unit, any development work that's ongoing up until the point where a consultation's launched. So when a consultation's launched, everybody can see there's a bill there. So in terms of internal processes, those are all confidential. So unless members are happy to share information about what bills they're working on, we can find that out. And also there is the fact that there's the Members' Bills Development Unit, so those are supported bills that are supported through the Assembly Commission, but potentially there could be members' bills that members are drafting privately.
No, 100%. It's just I was looking at the programme.
Sure.
I'm only trying to steer us in their direction.
No,
and that's all,
absolutely.
and I have no issue with who's bringing what.
Yes.
But we need in my experience, we need to be focused on what we want to achieve. So, and that's
certainly
part of the conversation. So the more we can find out, the better, because that's normally the way it works.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate they get so far, and you assume they're going to go there. We could run out of time on it. So because there's 6 stages to every bill, you know what I mean? So that's all I'm saying. But that's the best, as you know, whatever practicable, to be honest, we find out as much as we can. Yeah.
No, absolutely. We'll try and find out as much as we can. Yeah. And also, just to address your point about executive bills, you're absolutely right. When it gets to the end of the mandate, executive business gets scheduled first. Absolutely. And then if there is time after, members' bills get scheduled. And there is also the, it's now in standing orders as well, that the deadline for introduction of members' bills is June 2026 for this mandate. Right. So that really does then mean that, you know, the amount of time we have available really is compressed.
June 25, sorry, is that?
June 2026 for introduction.
For introduction, and then you have you're in the summertime, and you're back in September, and you have a you're to March, and then
absolutely. I mean, we don't have a lot of time. Take out recess periods. Absolutely.
As long as we've had the conversation now, and everybody understands where we're at. So
yeah, and that's why I'm flagging up that potentially there could be a very heavy workload for this committee. I mean, absolutely. If all these bills come, you'll be very busy. So yeah.
And I think, to be fair, as a committee, we have been pushing on you know that we have been pushing to get the exact time scales, and you know, in the previous committees I've been shouting about the fact that we're seeing slippage in terms of the time scales. Some of these bills are going to be huge. I mean, the water, flooding and sustainable drainage bill is going to be a huge piece of work in itself. Obviously, I think it has 6 parts to it as well. So, you know, it is going to be big. It's going to take up quite a bit of time. But we're here as legislators, and we're supposed to.
And I don't mind that challenge. Yeah. All I'm saying, whilst we're saying it takes time to get it right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? Because there's qualifications. There's legal challenges to it. It has to be competent. Mm-hmm. And all I'm saying, we understand. Even the departments going through it is a big piece of stuff. So all we're just flagging it up now. We know where we're at. We know what we have to do. We know what we're facing. That's all. You know?
And I will put on record as well, you know, and look, we've seen it in the chamber this week. The committee can ask for an extension in terms of the time frame that we look at pieces of legislation as well. So I think it's important that we put the department on notice too, that, you know, we want to ensure that the legislation that comes through our committee, that we have had proper scrutiny of it, that we feel that we have had an appropriate time frame to look at it as well, that we have been able to go out for the call of evidence to the amount of people that we have had. Obviously, we've taken a raft of evidence sessions from a number of different organisations, from groups at this moment in time. That is all to inform our understanding when some of these bills, when some of this legislation comes forward, as well as some of the likes of the developer-led contributions, biannual testing with the police being up on road safety. All of that feeds into everything. So we just need to make sure that we do have those definite time scales, and you're 100% right on that, Cathal. Having been in this place for quite some time,
I'm telling you, I'm looking forward to working with the other members who's going to experience it for the first time, Chair. Really are. And John Stewart need to get back in here with shirt and tie on him. He's looking very casual today. You know, he's going to the dark side today by out there. You know, you're welcome back next week, John.
Sorry, Clark, do you want to chat to a few more of the...
I will indeed, unless anybody has any other comments or any observations or anything they want to raise in terms of the legislative programme that may lie ahead. Nope. Okay, well then just turning to page 300 of the pack. Yeah. So members will recall that the committee had requested the department's divisional plans to assist with the scheduling of evidence. So this is really about, like I'd said earlier, we have a lot of consultations that are out for the minute. They're not just at the stage yet where we're ready to have oral briefings on them. So in terms of making sure that we do use the best, make the best possible use of committee time. Obviously we've no oral evidence sessions today. So these divisional plans had been requested so that we could identify potential issues or areas the committee might like to explore with officials. We've now received a response from the Minister, and it's on page 300, paragraphs 10 to 14, if you want to have a read there, but I can read out what the Minister said anyway. So the Minister's response is that due to the detailed nature of these plans and the focus on the internal working of the department and our staff deliverables, they are not made public. And as such, I do not consider it advisable to release these documents. I do, however, understand the committee's interest in gaining a clearer understanding of the department's deliverables related to the actions contained within the current business plan. My officials would be happy to arrange an informal meeting with you and the committee to discuss these matters. Each of the directors are also happy to have a briefing with the committee individually on the details of these work plans and the plans for next year.
Thanks, Barbara, on that. I'm not happy that it would be informal meetings. I think that lacks transparency and openness in terms of how the department is operating. I think in terms of the committee, it's important that we have proper scrutiny of exactly what the department is doing. And you may remember at the resumption of business last year at our meeting on the 14th of February, the committee agreed that meetings will, as a rule, be held in public session unless the committee agrees that there is an overriding reason for proceedings to be held in closed session. I don't believe that a business plan of a department, of which there are key targets that have to be met, of which it delivers for people on the ground here in Northern Ireland, is something that should be held behind closed doors or in an informal setting. I would rather have that public and an open session, that we have an opportunity to scrutinise the work that goes on by officials in the department. And I think that there's a legitimate interest in terms of this committee in exercising our functions as a relevant committee in terms of the business plans. And I think, yes, although the Minister has said that officials would be open to providing informal briefings, I just don't think that's transparent. And I think it would undermine the committee's previous agreement to conduct our business in a public session. And my view would be that we do press to have those meetings in a public session here in the committee, and that we are able to, scrutinise it properly. Talks about it being detailed. That's what we want. As a committee, we want to see the detail of what's going on in terms of the committee or in terms of the department. Cahill?
No, Chair. I mean, I just need clarification. This because it's slightly two different issues. We're here to scrutinise the Minister and the department. We're talking about divisional plans here, with the 4 divisional plans. Is that right? 4 area divisional plans.
Plans to, yes.
Yeah, that's a slightly different
areas.
matter, because to report back to council and all the, a slightly different matter going down that detail of it, to be honest with you. So I think, we're there to scrutinise the whole of the department and all the spend. When we get down into that level, each committee couldn't go. That's my reading of it. Is that right or wrong? Is that what you're thinking?
No, you're thinking of the divisional in terms of Western, Southern.
Well, no, that's what I'm asking. That's from seeking clarification.
So it's,
that's the level of detail. I mean, that's
the divisions of departments.
It's the divisions of the departments rather than roads divisional.
Okay, so I want to seek clarification on that.
Yeah.
So what are you saying then? What are you suggesting?
So basically, I think, what would be the difference? I mean, for me, I think it's important that we have openness and transparency as a scrutiny body, as a committee, that officials should be able to come to this committee in an open forum and stand over the work and the key targets, the progress to date within the department. To me, personally speaking, it doesn't sit well with me that officials want to do that on an informal basis. To me, I don't think we should be hiding anything from the public. I think that we should be able to scrutinise the work that goes on to make sure that the key targets within business plans are being met. And to be honest, I want to see the detail. I want to see what's going on in the department to make sure that things are being delivered upon. Because infrastructure is a key economic driver for Northern Ireland. So my approach would be to try and get the requested copies of the division's business plans, and that we do have oral evidence sessions in relation to that. I think detail is important.
I'm just conscious of the Minister's response now. I'm reading through it again. Have we scrutinised other business plans before?
So I think other committees have asked for business plans and have been able to scrutinise as well. We're obviously looking to scrutinise DFI's business plan to make sure that what is contained within the documents is actually being delivered upon. I don't think that's unreasonable, considering that that is the department's approach to what they feel needs to be actioned upon. I think it's only right that as a committee we have an opportunity to look at that as well and see, is that actually being met or not, and if it isn't being met, why not? Because this also features as part of the budget, so where's the money going to? It follows on from that. Is the money being...
all the division, all the plans, and we call them divisions, are not just in the overall plan scrutiny, is that not right? They're brought to the... Yeah?
I'm going to let the clerk...
They're brought to the overall scrutiny plan, which is... Yeah?
So going back to Peter's point there, the committee did receive the department's overall business plan, and we considered that a while back. This goes just a little bit further into looking at, I suppose, more specific streams and, you know, the milestones and targets that are associated with it. I think the committee's intent was to just get visibility of these, so then they can decide where they may like to focus on specific areas. So it wouldn't necessarily mean that the committee would need to take evidence on every one of them, but I think it's just really as a signpost of, you know, things that are working well, where things that, you know, are perhaps not working so well, to give the committee the opportunity to sort of question. Having received and considered that overview of performance and targets, with a view to potential further oral evidence sessions. So it was really more about I suppose, a longer term strategic look at the departmental divisional plans, and then considering its approach in terms of possible evidence or written evidence.
So for example, do you remember we talked about planning, and we talked about the committee potentially looking at doing a mini inquiry or inquiry in relation to that. We're obviously still waiting for the evidence sessions regarding that to see where we go. A business plan may actually help us, inform us on that as well, because we may look at it and go, well, key milestones haven't been met there, why is that the case, or what's happening there? That might also inform us and help us in terms of going forward where the committee would like to focus in on. There may be a specific thing within that business plan that jumps out at us, and that's why we're asking for the business plan, to get detail around it so that we can then as a committee move forward with our work.
Yeah, so just looking, Chair, paragraph 12 on page 300 sums it up.
Yeah.
You're basically asking them for the division's business plan and their year-to-date performance, full stop, more or less.
Yeah.
And then we can see why have you not performed so well in this bit or this bit, and then we can decide, do we drill into that or not?
Yeah. I think
No, appreciate the Chairman. May understand it, but I'm just, because I'm just, they would put all this stuff together and bring an annual plan and on account, right? What goes on. So I mean, if you're saying to me then we specifically target something 3 months in, we may not get the detail or level of detail. We might get an update where we're at, but that's my point. They correlate all the department correlates all these together anyway, and then comes. That's my point. So I appreciate what we're all asking here, but we may not get that. You know, I mean, if we focus on something that's only 2 months into the programme, well, we may not get what we're looking for. You know, in terms of that's you know, potentially. That's all I'm saying to you. So
I think that was really the committee's
and that's my point, Chair. That's
yeah.
I'm just throwing that out there. That's the way it works. So
I think that was the committee's intention, to write out, receive, consider that information, and equally there again, it's, you know, as they are business plans, yes, they will. You know, there will be peaks and flows in terms of the year, in terms of performance on those things, but it gives the ability of the committee to be able to track that and see, is there a particular area of focus that they wanted to look at, which will also in turn inform the committee's, you know, strategic plan, etc., etc. So, as I said, it was really more about getting that information as really as a stock take.
100%. The only thing is, I mean, yes, and we get that, but then if you're asking the question, then is that the best way for us to go about it? Because the department may not have. Sorry, picking out a single issue, but the concentration may be in somewhere else in the top of. That's all I'm saying. You know what I mean? That's my only point. I'm not saying it's wrong or right to ask the question. It's how we acquire we're doing the right job and acquiring the right information at the right time, and how that's a different matter. And that's that's why they do the annual plans. I mean, that's my reading of it. Yeah.
And look, you know, we could have received the copies and thought, you know what, that's all fine. You know, we're happy with that. But I think that is for the committee to decide whether, you know, whether we
100%.
think it's, you know, too detailed or we're getting too bogged down in it. But, you know, that's for the committee to make those decisions.
For me-
Sorry,
for
Peter.
me, apologies, Chair. For me, it kind of hinges on paragraph 13. They're not made public, and I do not consider it advisable to release these documents. I'm fully supportive of openness, transparency, getting documents, internal documents, whatever it may be, but they're not made public. If these things are released to us as a committee, do they therefore go public and everybody can see what could be commercially sensitive, or could we maybe be treading on the toes of something bigger for the department?
So you recall, we obviously received the first ministerial brief.
Yeah.
And that document is not made public. That was given to us as a committee. Commercially sensitive information that was contained within that first day brief to the Minister was redacted. And obviously, if there is commercially sensitive information, or, you know, there is policies and guidance within the Assembly for whether information is withheld because it is sensitive of nature, confidential, and you'll know we've received through this committee correspondence that has been marked sensitive and confidential and is to be treated as such. I suppose the argument is we're a scrutiny body for the department, and therefore we're not seeking to make we're not going to publish this ourselves. We simply want to know what is the department doing on each of the different divisions underneath to inform our thinking and to help us schedule our forward work programme going forward. As I say, we might get the documents and see actually things are being met here, this looks okay. Or potentially we may say, look, that's massive slippage there. That's a key issue that the committee have looked into. So,
But there's a slight difference, Chair, in terms of policy and legislation on public spend as opposed to operational matters, which might be an issue.
My concern.
You know, there are operational matters which doesn't affect. We shouldn't be. We actually shouldn't, as a scrutiny committee. That's not our role. If it's an operational thing, that's generally not our role. I'm only saying that. And that's what we need to decipher.
yeah.
We need to separate that out, because if it's an operational matter, that's a different matter altogether.
Are we not simply asking for each division's not?
And it may no, but it may
let's say active travel picket,
Yeah.
and they're going to do A, B, C, D, and E, and they're going to do it by A, B, C, D, and E.
Yeah.
We're looking at it and go, that's fine.
Yeah.
So why are you hiding it?
But I'm not saying that at all, Keith. What I'm saying to you, if it's an issue that it's an operational matter, then it's outside.
It's not operational.
No,
it's
I'm only
performance.
saying to you some.
Yeah.
I'm only saying some of the stuff.
And if there's stuff about
Yeah.
you know
That's all I'm saying.
confidentiality, about you know
Because
what
once-
contract gets what, that's fair enough.
Once
you know.
it's out in the public, it's out in the public. That's all I'm saying. So I mean,
But it's only going to committee.
It's going to committee.
Chair, once you request documentation, I mean, unless it's prioritised or marked, slightly
But-
different. We're only having a
Yeah.
conversation about it.
And no, I appreciate that. And
Because if
as
it's
I said,
operational matters, it's outside of it.
and as I said there, if there are matters contained within that documentation that are confidential or sensitive within nature, then the department, as we have seen in the past, come to this committee, will either redact information from the committee or will mark it as sensitive, private, confidential in terms of the committee. We've seen that in the past, and there's clear guidance and policy that is set out for the Assembly in terms of the procedures of how that goes. So, look, I'm putting it to the committee. I do think that there is a case here that we, in terms of performance, in terms of how the department are meeting key milestones, and I think as a scrutiny body, I think that does warrant scrutiny of the committee. But as I say, that's up for the committee to decide today whether we go forward and push for that detail in terms of the milestones and the performance. Anybody have any thoughts?
If the department had come back with something instead of no, we're not giving it to you, it would have been fine. But considering they're saying no, you're saying, why are you saying no? And like, this is a civil service, right?
Yeah.
Due to the detailed nature of these plans, fair enough, take the stuff that we don't need to see out. And the focus on internal work of the department, on our staff deliverables.
Yeah,
We've been checking our deliverables every day.
yeah,
So why can we not check these guys?
yeah. Well, I mean, this is my argument. Infrastructure is a capital heavy department. We have been querying around the budget. The budget sessions that we got, I felt there wasn't a whole pile of detail in terms of the decision making, in terms of where that money was all going to. This is about performance. It's about delivery against our objectives, not objections, objectives. So I think as a committee, performance of how the department is delivering is key. It's vital.
And Chair, nobody's arguing
as
that
politicians, we are
But Chair, I'm not
the
arguing
public
that
face
point.
of this.
Maybe not making myself clear. I'm not arguing that point
Yeah.
because we can get into the minutiae of it. I'll ask this one final question. When is the department to report to us on their annual delivery plans, or when's that?
So we received the annual delivery plan, and we did go back
Right across
to
all the
query.
divisions, yeah?
Well,
See the I think it was quarter 1, quarter 2 was considered by the committee. There's I suppose
When's
there's
the next quarter up then?
well, there's always a lag because those are considered by the departmental board as well. So I think for quarter 1, quarter 2, and as I said, I'm just sort of trying to recall the precise dates, but I think it was October, November time the committee considered those. So we wouldn't have an end of year, 2024-25 full update until probably nearer the summer, I would say, once they've been considered. Obviously, the outputs have been assessed by the department against their objectives.
So that would be the latest report we get where we're at, yeah?
For the whole year,
Yeah.
it's possible there would
And
be...
in terms of any quarters across the divisions, we get the figures where...
I would imagine there probably would be the second quarters should be
close to us.
relevant, but that will obviously be just the broader departmental ones rather than the individual divisional plans. But that would potentially be something, but that would only give the very, very high level overview.
But that's all we were looking. It's a high level overview.
Well, the committee had asked for the divisional plans.
We made that, achieved that now. But I'm only saying if it come fairly sharpish, we'd see them and then you could continue. But if you thought they're too far away, well, then the chair's putting a proposal to the committee, you know what I mean? So that's my point. If it come next week or the week after, we could look at that, and if we weren't satisfied, then we move on from there.
Yeah, I suppose the difference is there's that overarching departmental one as opposed to the committee's original request for the divisional ones. But equally, it's for the committee to decide, and if the committee, what it wants to do in terms of the response, we will just, carry out the committee's instructions and wishes.
And so you're saying to me on the divisional ones, we don't get them in the quarter?
So the divisional ones are the more detailed ones that the committee is asking the ministers provided a response to. The departmental sort of the overreaching one, they are published quarterly, but because of the process in terms of being considered by the departmental board, we would probably be due to get an updated overarching one, but it wouldn't give the finer, I suppose, milestones or targets by division. That would just be the overall overarching objectives.
So just then going back to the letter from the Minister. So the Minister has said that each of the directors are happy to provide a brief to the committee individually on their areas of work and plans for next year. One option could be to ask for a written update on the details of the work and plans for next year to see if that helps the committee identify areas that it would really like to look at in the first instance. Or the alternative option then is the one which is suggested by the Minister to arrange the informal briefings. So perhaps an option would be to get written briefings first and then decide whether or not they were to be informal or in open session. That could be an option.
Yeah, but she's saying here the Minister's saying here in 13 that it's not advisable to release these documents.
Mm-hmm. If we were to then ask for a written briefing, so not asking necessarily for the divisional plans, or if the committee does want to proceed and ask for the divisional plans with the detailed information redacted.
You'd probably get a faster response, I suppose, if you were to write asking. But I mean, I think a lot of where the conversation is stemming from today is a bit of confusion around why it's not advisable and why it's not public. So you could ask in writing, can you provide this in writing, and maybe expand a little bit as to what, or redact and let us know why it may not be advisable, something like that, just to try to get a bit more information.
Sure,
Because I don't think
it
we're
would
getting
kind
all
of
of it.
defeat the purpose, because then the first question then was redacted. I'm only saying. So we get a written report and some stuff's not in. And redaction wouldn't certainly be, all I'm saying, if there's an offer to come and brief, let's see how that would go. And if not, we've two choices: either get something and there's something not included, and or we have a briefing. That's the two choices we have here. So what's the best value, the best time the committee can use to do that, to extract as much information as we can? Do you know what I mean? Because what happens if you get something, if you're talking about redaction and I don't know, I'm only asking. So the next thing is what's redacting, do you mean that's my point? So if you have an informal briefing, then at least you can then say, well, give us a writing or whatever the case may be. I don't know, I'm only having a conversation with that. So, but it's up to the committee, sure. We've had a good conversation about it. So
I personally wouldn't be in favour of the informal meetings.
okay, fair enough.
Personally, but I mean, again, that's for the committee to decide. You know, I'm just chatting as a normal member of the committee. I think that it's important that we have openness.
Well,
In terms
and
of
nobody's saying it.
if officials are happy to come and speak to us in an informal setting, why not just come in a normal open session and speak to the committee? You know, I think that doesn't bode well for how the committee interacts with the department and officials going forward. That I think if, you know, officials are there, they should expect to come up to the committee, and I think an informal setting I think it potentially could set a precedence in terms of how we scrutinise the performance.
We'll ask for a written briefing then.
So yeah, we can either ask for a written briefing in the first instance, or we can go ahead with these informal sessions. We'll maybe even get a show of hands around the proposal by the Minister for the informal sessions, just to get a gauge of who's in favour of having informal sessions or in the first instance.
My concern with the informal session is that in a month, 2 months, do you know? So that's my only concern. I'm fine to have a conversation, whatever it may be, but is it a good use of time if and when we get it?
Exactly, and I mean, if we get a written briefing and then you're going to call somebody in to say, listen, we're not happy with it, it's how we use our time. So we're very busy. We have a busy schedule, so that's all I'm saying. If it's, I wouldn't even put it to a vote. I mean, people want a written briefing, but that's it.
Do you want to go for a written briefing in the first instance? And that was really the purpose of asking for the divisional plan, so that you don't have briefings from every single area if there's nothing really to tell.
And I don't think there's hiding anything. I just think if we had an informal conversation, which we've had with many people, you might, I don't know. But I mean, listen, it's up to the committee.
Could you maybe say in the written correspondence, you know, ask for a fast response, but also, like, why was it not advisable in the first instance to come to the committee? A lot of this stems around, you're not really telling us everything. Like, initially you're going to say it's not advisable. Well, why? You know, it hinges around that, and not a great response. So maybe include that in the correspondence as well, just so we actually know what the issues are.
Content with that?
So effectively we're asking paragraph 12 only rejigged.
We're asking for a written briefing of each division's business plans and their year-to-date performance against the objectives.
Well, that's directors over divisions, not the divisions. Yeah. Not the divisions, the divisions over
Yes.
each area. It's
Yes.
probably a better way of putting it.
Yes.
Well, asking for each director to provide written information on details of their work and plans, and then seeing if
And
there's
performance.
and performance to it.
Yeah.
Or output, whatever you want to call it, yeah.
So
And then we decide after that.
then we can decide after that. I mean, whether then we will get the actual divisional plans after that. We'll see. But content with that. Okay. Was there anything else?
Yes, so then just finally, just again going back to the clerk's memo again at page 300. So taking into account that we do know that there's a lot of work underway in the department that we are yet to receive information on, and that information is going, just trying to take a proactive approach and looking at what is doable out there. So there's a suggestion there to commission some research on policy approaches to transport decarbonisation, because we know decarbonisation is going to come up. Technology innovations, latest developments in decarbonisation, including developments in fuels, freight HGV decarbonisation, and rural specific solutions, because I know that's another area that we have flagged up. And then transport demand management, because we know we've been dealing with issues around congestion, so maybe an explanation of examples and best practice around how to manage demand in terms of transport. And then in terms of water and sewage, looking at companies' governance and funding models around that. And then sustainable drainage systems, international best practice. So those are just some things that will help put the committee at the front foot whenever we get information from the department in those particular areas. So those are suggestions, and I'm really just seeking if the committee is happy to agree to those suggestions, or if there are any other suggestions as well. And obviously we have the other briefing in terms of the reservoirs as well. So,
Just do you agree all of these?
yeah, any, all, or anything
Yeah.
else?
I think in my head there's two most important things this committee can be dealing with, and it's water and it's planning. So I would gravitate like straight away to water and sewage companies, governance and funding models as a priority within those. They're all important, don't get me wrong, but I mean as a priority for this committee, I think water and sewage companies, because it keeps coming up over and over again. It comes up all the time in terms of infrastructure. It came up yesterday in terms of finance as well, and I think this committee could maybe help straighten out a lot of the misconceptions that are out there and misinformation in a lot of respects. So definitely as a priority, that one.
And just to remind members as well, the audit office is coming up on specifically funding of NI Water, so that'll be obviously an evidence session in the committee coming up as well, so that will also help as part of that piece too. Is there anything that anybody wants to add as part of that? Are you happy and content with the suggested bullet points there?
Those sound, we'll have a finalised breakdown then within the next couple of weeks, yeah? For ourselves from,
Yeah,
because
sure.
we're going to have to at some point nail down our programme and say, right, that's it folks, and we're done for the next.
Absolutely, and
Now,
there
there can
is...
be AOB at some point, or some emergency matters we might have to deal with, but
Absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, when you look at it in the round, there's quite a bit there, and obviously we have the other research as well in terms of planning. So you take these in, and you take in the departmental briefings, and then the other briefings that are scheduled. I think we will, and then if we do see legislation, the committee will be quite busy.
Thank you.
And I suppose the difficulty is just at this moment in time we have court cases that are sort of in the mix there too, which is sort of curtails some of our ability to look at some of the issues, you know, as well. So, content?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So, so then, obviously, as a result of that, I'm just seeking agreement that we proceed with the evidence sessions as set out in the draft forward work programme, and that will obviously reflect any decisions taken today. Content, yeah?
Agreed, yeah.
Okay, item 13 is any other business. So I just want to ask at this moment in time, does any members have any items that they wish to raise? I have one, which is just in relation to Storm Eowyn. I am still picking up that there are issues in and about parts of Northern Ireland, and I suppose it specifically relates to roads that are still ripped up, difficulties with utilities in terms of NI Water and our road network as well. So as an overall, I think it might be worthwhile to check in with the department about the road network and the amount of issues that have been identified on our road network across Northern Ireland, if they have figures in relation to that, and the cost specifically of what it will take to, as a total, deal with the road network. I'm also picking up issues with NI Water. So specifically I want to raise about Cypress Avenue, and you'll be aware because it was in the media and the news that there were large established trees that fell on in Cypress Avenue and caused extensive damage, and it ripped up the pavement on the road, and crucially it's caused some issues with water infrastructure. So some residents have been without full supply of water for 7 weeks, and I think there was a temporary measure that was put in place, but this is intermittent with the water pressure and the supply. The tree stumps need to be lifted out in order for work to be fully completed, and I understand that it keeps getting stuck between NI Water, DFI and the council, because there's work that still needs to be completed, but I understand DFI is part of the real issue in terms of a blockage there. So DFI, I understand, do have a contractor that they need with specific lifting equipment, but people without, you know, proper water supply 7 weeks on is not really it's not really good enough. I know of people's laneways that are still blocked. They're driving over the temporary water solution. That's causing problems. I think it's burst a couple of times as well. So I just think that's unacceptable 7 weeks on. So it might be worthwhile to check out to see why this has not been actioned so far, and to give the residents some comfort that this will be sorted out soon, and you know what this will mean going forward for them as well, because obviously if it's a temporary water solution, we want to make sure that there is, you know, health and safety, clean drinking water, all of that is not disrupted as well. So are members content that we just check in on that, check in not just on the Cypress Avenue issue, but overall?
You're asking in what outstanding issues that hasn't been addressed. Basically, that's what you're saying. You mean,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. You can name 1 or 2, I don't know. But that's what we're asking from a committee point of view. And
yeah.
It's not just a Cypress Avenue or whatever. So,
yeah.
And obviously the NAW part, I don't know, but whether we directly, if it's council responsibility, do we send the council ourselves or for a response, or do we let the department handle that? See, you know what I mean? If it's council responsibility, we as a committee then would we could certainly ask if you want to do that. I'm not saying if it's I don't know if it's council matter or not. You know it's down your way. It's NAW thing, is it? Oh no, I'm only asking. Yeah. So it's just the chair mentioned council. So if it's only DFI and NA, we have responsibility. But we would need to ask if there's any outstanding issues there too.
I think in the first instance, I think maybe check in with DFI to see where the outstanding issues are, and where, and we can also check to see how resilient the communication has been between the different organisations coming out of the storm as well. We know obviously there was a civil contingency group that was set up at the time in January, early part of February, but I think coming out of the storm, there still needs to be that piece of work, particularly where you look at Cypress Avenue, where residents have that temporary water solution that's in place. It's just not, in my view, acceptable 7 weeks on. So everybody content? Yeah. Okay, thank you, members. Thanks for your cooperation and work today. So item 14 is the date, time and location of the next meeting. The next meeting will take place at 10 a.m. on Wednesday the 19th of March 2025 in room 29 Parliament Building. So I now adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Committee Room 29. Sound.